Welcome to the top 5 strategies to build a coaching culture. First and foremost, why do we need a coaching culture? Why now? Why now more than ever? What do we need to do to invest in our people? And why now more than ever do we need to invest in our people? Hi, I'm Tim Hagan, owner and president of Progress Coaching, and I've been teaching for the past 25 years leaders and managers of organizations in the workplace how to coach and drive their top talent and develop top talent. I have never, in my history of owning this company and teaching coaching, ever experienced anything like what's going on right now. So it begs the question, why coaching now? Here's why. People are anxious, people are fearful, people have spouses who have been furloughed. People need to talk to somebody. People need to be inspired. People also need to be challenged, especially during this time when we have to go above and beyond the call of duty. So what we do at Progress Coaching and what positions us is we've been doing this for 25 years. Certainly we update our content, our materials, our approaches, yet I will tell you it comes back to one fundamental thing. When we invest in our people, they will ultimately invest in themselves. Coaching is a two-step process. 1, it's getting someone to look in the mirror. 2, it's getting them to take action on number 1. Very few people will do number 1 on their own. Let me give you a case in point. Recently, I was talking to someone who worked at an organization, and a few people at the organization got furloughed. And one of the people said, "Boy, I can't believe they did this to us." And I looked at the person, I said, "Why do you think that occurred?" "Oh, I don't know, it just feels really personal." I said, "Or they have to do that for the organization to survive." After about 20 minutes of calmly asking some questions, it morphed into a very comfortable conversation. At the end, I asked this person, I said, "So what are you going to do starting tomorrow to go above and beyond the call of duty? And what are you going to do to invest in other people so they do the same? Because if everybody in the organization does it, what do you think will happen?" She does not hesitate. She said, "We're going to get through this." And I smiled at her. I said, "Do you remember our conversation start about 30 minutes ago?" She said, "Yeah, I was really negative." I said, "Why?" She said, "I'm terrified." I said, "Can I give you some advice?" She said, "Sure." I said, "Tell your boss that. And tell he or she you want to go above and beyond the call of duty and you want to pull people along." That's what leaders need to do today. So, let me introduce you to a concept that we teach in Progress Coaching called qualms. Qualm stands for questions, activities, learning projects, motivations, and supplemental coaching. Questions drive awareness. Activities drive positive change. Learning projects drive accountability. Motivations drives willingness. And supplemental coaching, which are strategies where the manager, the person doing the coaching, does not physically have to be present. Now this seems so simple, right? Yet wouldn't it be better if we could just tell someone with a negative attitude to be more positive and it actually worked? Yet that's what a lot of leaders do, and that's why they need to learn questions. And oh, by the way, someone who's negative, we have to facilitate experiences, activities that drive positive change. And oh, by the way, they need to be accountable. We cannot be accountable for other people if they're not accountable for themselves. Motivations. Do you know the number one thing that you can do to build engagement according to the Gallup organization? It's to lead with people's strengths. Yet when I ask the question, what happens when you get called into your boss's office? What's your first thought? It's usually 99.9% of the time people say, "Uh-oh, what did I do wrong?" Why is that? Because that's what we have facilitated as an expectation. Now, what if there was a way to drive talent, accelerate talent that took no in-person coaching or management time, called supplemental coaching? Wouldn't that help? So when you're driving that culture, we have to realize it's a learned behavior. The number one thing kids hated about youth sports was the drive home with the parents. Why? Because the parents go into a mode of, "You played well, but," and they list out 12 things they have to practice by the time they get home. what's the number one reason people quit a job today? It's not the organization. It's typically their boss, whether fair or unfair. So research tells us coaching cultures are powerful. The progress principle, a study done at Harvard, reported 76% of the time people are at their most motivated state when they were improving in their jobs. Almost 8 out of 10 people were at their most motivated state. Not money, not recognition, not reward. It was a sense of progress. Yet if employees' impression is every time my boss calls me into the office, it's, uh-oh, what did I do wrong? That motivation will quickly dissipate. The Gallup organization reports people will engage 8 times more when we lead with their strengths. Now, hopefully you can see to build a coaching culture is going to take time and practice. The Gallup organization reports that the chances of being engaged at work when people focus on strengths is 73% versus 9% for organizations who do part of their conversation. Coaching is also a foreign language. Let me give you a brief example. Let's say we're coaching Lisa, and Lisa does not work well with others. To sit down with Lisa and say, Lisa, you're doing a pretty good job, but I've heard from a few people that you're not working well with them. Guess what Lisa just did? She started to think, uh-oh, is my job on the line? Uh-oh, who's saying this about me? Versus, Lisa, here are the 3 areas I think you do exceptionally well. And I think about embedding you more into the team concept successfully. Hearing that, what goes through your mind, and how do you think we could go about doing that together? That simple insertion of the word and instead of but makes all the difference in the world. Here's why. If I went with the first approach, Lisa's going to be telling 6 or 7 people in the lunchroom, online, via text, by noon that day, because she's going to feel attacked. She'll take it out of context. See, cultures are not things that are on the wall. Cultures are made up by the conversations we have. Active listening versus interruptions. How many times do managers say, John, here's what I've heard you say. Do I have that correct, or have I taken anything out of context? We don't do it enough. Now, let's also think about, are we listening, really listening? Ready to paraphrase back to someone without interrupting? Or how often are we talking to people and you can just see they're thinking about what they want to say while you're talking? And then you have people who are highly directed, tellers, versus people who inquire through questions. Now, what if we had people come into our office and said, Lisa, I just want to praise you. You're becoming an awesome teammate. And I wanted to bring in Sarah, my boss, so she could hear this as well. Guess what Lisa just did? Lisa just accelerated trust throughout the whole organization because she's going to tell the same 6 to 10 people. So there are top alignment areas you need to focus on. First, look at your corporate values and principles. There is a way to map coaching strategies to drive your corporate values and principles. 2, you have to have coaching from top to bottom. 3, the coaching has to be multi-directional. It cannot just be from boss to employee. 4, here's the big one. We have to teach people at all levels how to seek, receive coaching and feedback. And last, come up with a measurement strategy. Don't just use a workplace engagement because that's always what you've done. You might have different measurement strategies per area of the organization. So when you think about your alignment of values and principles, let's go back to qualm. Let me demonstrate questions very quickly. John, what are you going to do to show people on your team that you're very caring by our definition? Bill, what are you going to do to facilitate loyalty positively? And what are the steps you're going to take? Joanne, from an innovation standpoint, on a scale of 1 to 6, highly involved, very innovative, you would rate yourself at a 6, or 1, you feel like you're not being leveraged as much as you could be? She might say 3 or 4. You could say, well, what do we need to do to get you towards a 6? Bill, if you had to describe your commitment level, what's one word you would describe and why? Now, I did not demonstrate the whole acronym of qualm. I just demonstrated questions. Coaching can be mapped to your corporate values and principles. The biggest thing that you can do in an organization, especially as most organizations do, they'll have either trust or integrity on their corporate values and principles. Here's the problem with that. Very few people want to coach upward out of fear of retribution or political landmines. Sideways, peer-to-peer, agile coaching is becoming more and more popular. Downward, the typical management to employee conversation. You have to have skilled coaching throughout the whole organization. 3, we have to teach and practice coaching. I'm going to share this with you. If you are not practicing, you will never have a coaching culture. I'm going to say it again. You will never, ever have a coaching culture unless you practice the conversations, if you practice designing supplemental coaching, and you literally practice being motivational. Part of practice is you have to practice and score people. How many times are they interrupting versus demonstrating active listening? How many directives are being given versus questions being asked? This is the blocking and tackling of coaching that few organizations leverage. 4, teach people how to receive coaching and feedback. Let me share a quick story with you. I had a person in one of our client sites who literally said, my boss gave me really, really nasty feedback. I said, oh, what did he say? And she said, well, he told me X, Y, and Z. And it was very factual. It was very tactical. And I said, why do you feel like it was an attack? She said, well, I work hard. And she started to talk about herself. I said, can I have some latitude to kind of challenge you? She said, sure. I said, I asked you why you felt like he attacked you, yet you started to tell me how hard you work. And what I heard you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you work hard, you shouldn't get any constructive feedback. She said, no, that's not what I meant. I said, then that's my mistake. What did you mean? She started to tell me how hard she works again. And I smiled at her, and she stopped. She said, oh my gosh, I'm doing it again. I said, yep. And we started to chuckle, and I said, do you mind if I kind of turn this around on you from a humorous perspective? She said, sure. I said, I think he got up in the middle of the night, couldn't sleep, thinking about how he could ruin your day and hopefully your weekend, because his objective was to truly be nasty and embrace your perception. She starts laughing. She said, am I being ridiculous? I said, no, you're being honest about how you feel. I said, so what did you do in that meeting? She said, I just sat there. I said, hypothetically, what if you looked back at him and said, you know what I hear you say is X, Y, Z, and here are the actions I'm going to take to meet those expectations. How do you think he would feel? And more importantly, how do you think you would feel? She said, I'd feel better and more in control. I said, you know my next question, right? She said, no. I said, so what are your next steps? And we both smiled at each other. She hadn't been taught how to accept feedback. It quickly became personal. It was not personal. And 5, come up with a measurement strategy. Do not assume one measurement strategy is suffice for everything. We've worked with companies who do workplace engagement studies. We'll take the results and map a coaching strategy. We've worked with companies who have net promoter scores. We will create a coaching strategy based on the results. We've actually taken peer groups and interviews and then mapped coaching strategies. Make sure your measurement strategy is in alignment with what you're trying to achieve. Now, I really hope that this presentation has been helpful. If you want to chat with us, here's our link to our calendar. If you want to check out our podcast and our blog, I hope you will. I think you'll find it extremely interesting. Building a coaching culture is not something that is only delivered by training alone. Training is not the problem. It's the application, it's the practice, it's all the attributes. Think about a manager becoming new at coaching, yet also having employees who have been taught how to receive and seek feedback and coaching. Wouldn't that combination be more powerful than just the manager receiving training? Good luck.